Am I the a-hole for lying to my family for 2 years that my house purchase deal fell through? A few years ago, my husband and I told our relatives that we wanted to buy a country house by the lake. In our country, almost everyone lives in apartments, so our families were very happy. My mother immediately decided that she wanted to arrange a vegetable garden in the yard of this house. My husband's sister said it would be a great place where she could take her children for the summer. My sister started fantasizing about family picnics. My husband's brother joked that it would be a good place to get drunk on weekends. We were both terrified. We didn't want any of this. We wanted to have a place where we could feel truly at home, where we can rest, where we can arrange everything to your taste, where there will be peace and quiet, and not family squabbles, where we can raise our future children. In the end, we decided to tell them that the deal had fallen through and there would be no house. After all, it's not even their business. We were the only ones buying the house, and it has nothing to do with them. We didn't have to tell them. We only told the truth to our best friends, whom we were sure would not spoil anything. The house is really beautiful, and my friends and I often go there on weekends. Well, 2 years have passed and my sister found out about the house by accident, because one of my friends posted a photo from there. Now our families are furious and call us greedy. Many of the relatives don't want to talk to us until we give them the address. My mom even asked for spare keys. This is exactly the hype that we tried so hard to avoid. I don't think we're a-holes, but my husband is starting to hesitate about what we should have done, so outside advice can help us.
If your relatives don't want to talk to you until you give them access to the house, I think that's one problem solved. Don't give them access, they don't talk to you. And that's that. No spare key for your mother. Send them links to lakeside Airbnbs. If they want to spend time at the lake, at a house they don't own, they should look into Airbnbs. Keep your house to yourself. Stand firm, OP. Think of all the plans they made for a house that's not theirs. Then look at the beautiful home you've created and picture it being ruined by greedy and entitled relatives. That should strengthen your resolve to keep them at arm's length. Not the a-hole. And neither is hubby unless he gives in to their demands. Your relatives suck though.
Agreed, not the a-hole. They called OP greedy when all they could think about was themselves when OP and husband announced their plan originally. They don't deserve time at the lake house on OP's dime.
Not the a-hole. If they ask for the address or a spare key, tell them that is exactly why we didn't tell you. This is our house. And you try to make it your safe party zone. No. And only if you can accept our boundaries and that this is our home and not anything for you. You will not be invited or told anything more. Would also install cameras there. If they found a photo on social media, they might get the address via Google Street View or an old advertisement of the house, and then just think they could just drop by.
Not the a-hole. The reaction from your relatives is absolute confirmation of your fears.
Typically lying is not the best play, but it's absolutely wild that basically your whole family just assumed that they would have total access to your property just because you own a nice house. Not the a-hole, and I totally get why you'd lie about that. With a family like that, who needs enemies?
Am I the a-hole for refusing to babysit last minute and ruining the parents' important plans because their sons seemed older than they said they were? I, a 19 female, have been babysitting occasionally for a few families for the past 2 years. A week ago, a new family got my numbers from one of the families I babysit for a lot. I told them up front that I have this rule where I only babysit boys that are 10 and under, but when it comes to girls, the age isn't an issue for me. They told me they had 2 boys, ages 9 and 10, so I agreed. They told me that they had very important plans the day I am to babysit, and I assured them I am very professional and will be there on time and all that. The day came and I went to their house and the dad greeted me, then took me to their living room to meet the boys. To my surprise, the boys looked like number 9 and 10 I've ever met. One looked 12 and the other looked he could be 15 or even 16. Both were taller than me and the older one even had some visible facial hair. All that was going through my head was these parents lied to me about the ages because I lead with my rule about ages and they lied to me just so I would accept. When the mother came down and greeted me, I asked to speak to her in another room and I told her I cannot babysit. I was also truthful about the reason and she was livid. We got into a back and forth where I basically said that I feel they lied about the ages and she even said, "Oh, so you want me to show you their birth certificates to believe me?" At this point, I was kinda mad because she was immediately livid and I also felt like I was fooled. Anyways, I said, "Yeah, some proof would help." She stomped off to the living room and I could hear her tell her husband, "Get this bitch out of my house. I will stay with the boys." I walked out of the kitchen towards the front door and announced I'm leaving before I stepped out. Later that night, the mom of the family who recommended me called and was also pretty angry. I explained that these boys looked so much older than they were said to be and there was no way they weren't lying. She said maybe one is actually 11 but the other is truly 9 and that they just look like they were so much older. To be fair, the mother was tall and the dad was huge. It's actually the reason I asked to confront the mother and not the father. But boys weren't just tall but also looked older face-wise. Also, babysitting two strange boys who were both taller and clearly so much stronger than me doesn't feel safe, which is why I have the age rule in the first place. There was no way that their mother didn't realize her boys looked so much older than boys their ages. I feel like it was something she should have mentioned after telling her my rule about the ages. I felt like I was justified, but I also felt bad that I ruined their plans. Everyone involved is angry with me and I wonder if maybe I was overreacting and should have just babysat since I agreed. Right now, I don't know what to think. Was I the a-hole here?
Not the a-hole. It sucks for the mom that her young kids are so big, but she's gonna have to spring for a large, adult male babysitter. This is not easy to come by. Chances are, she might not be able to go out until the boys are old enough to stay home alone. Or maybe she can trade nights with other boy moms. I don't know. But this is not your problem. It was ridiculous of her to expect a teenage girl to be able to deal with boys that are bigger than her. Also, she was totally out of line cursing you out like that. If that is the level of emotional regulation you get from the parent, I shudder to think what you'll get from her kids.
I stayed home alone at 11. I even looked after my grandma at that age. At 12, I babysat myself. I feel like in a different timeline.
Not the a-hole. I babysat for a family for a couple of years. The boy was maybe 12 when I first started. After a year or two when I babysat, he would keep coming downstairs asking for a hug. I stopped after the second trip he did that as it made me nervous. He was taller and had started getting facial hair, obviously hitting puberty feelings pretty hard.
12 when you started? I'd been left home alone for years before that.
Some kids haven't earned their parents' trust to be left alone.
Not the a-hole because you felt genuinely uncomfortable in this setting, and you must always go with your gut. Your policy about what ages you are comfortable with was stated up front. I think you acted like a right proper business person in this situation. You should always offer to meet with the family before accepting a first job, though. I'm kind of surprised they didn't want to meet the person they were charging with watching their children beforehand, but oh well.
It sounds like they lied, but even if they didn't lie, the mom's reaction was unacceptable. Someone else pointed out that if the mom's emotional regulation is at that level, you don't know where the kids could be emotionally. Couple that with the fact the boys could overpower you and that you'd never met them to get to know them, you made the right choice. I'd also to add that even if the kids are young and well-behaved and smaller than you, as a former nanny myself with 2 decades of childcare experience, I would not work for an adult who spoke to me that way.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories.